going to talk about some of the barriers and difficulties that you might encounter when trying to improve healthy eating in preschool. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this smaller study regarding barriers and possibilities to promote healthy eating in school and preschool. In Sweden, children consume about 70% of their daily energy intake in preschool, which make the preschool an important arena for promoting healthy and sustainable eating habits. And the preschool environment offers many opportunities to work pedagogically with food and meals. In this work, the preschool staff have a crucial role, and in many places, food and meals are being used for educational activities, but there is great variation in methodological approaches, degree, and success. In other places, the potential of the food and meals in preschool has not been yet fully explored. The aim of the present study was to explore preschool staff's notions and experiences regarding perceived barriers and possibilities to promote healthy eating habits among children. 7 semi-structured interviews were conducted with staff with different professional backgrounds, 5 in pairs and 2 individual. The 12 participants were recruited from a freestanding course called Food and Health in Preschool that we have at our department, and consisted of teachers, preschool manager, chef, and catering manager. The interviews were transcribed and computer-assisted thematic coding were carried out with focus on barriers and possibilities. Analyses were influenced by social learning theory with the concepts of communities of practice, boundary processes, and identity as analytical tools. Teaching and catering could be said to belong to 2 different communities of practice. These have their own management, properties, set of roles, and staff with different educational backgrounds. The focus of the present study was on boundary practices or interactions or processes, what you can call it. Boundaries, they are important since they could offer unique learning opportunities. So what happens between catering and the teaching is very interesting, I think. When it comes to perceived barriers, these were related to both teaching and catering, and the boundary interactions that are brought to the fore when the preschool meal is realized. A perceived barrier among teachers was their sheer lack of interest in the matter. Some of the teachers stated that they do not talk so much about the food. It is not prioritized. They mostly talk about plate waste and manners at the table, and they do not see food and meals as a pedagogic possibility. And here comes the quote. I did not go to college for 3 years to cook porridge. Actually, one teacher said. According to the catering manager, food-related meetings are seldom prioritized, unfortunately. Often they are the ones that have to be omitted if something needs to be changed. So those meetings are just not prioritized. Another barrier concerned teachers' low or sometimes non-existing knowledge about food and health. They maintain that they are very uncertain when special diets are served or simply when talking about food at the table with the children. Much of what they say about food and health are based on their own subjective opinions and knowledge. Sometimes they decide what children should think about the food also, and children are not allowed in the kitchen to the same extent as before. The meal situation itself is described as stressful. Often only 30 minutes are available for the meal before educational activities should take place. Some children demand more resources, and the meal environment could be a source of stress when fixed places sometimes are missing, with poor lighting and too many impressions for the children. When it comes to perceived barriers in relation to catering, teachers question the catering staff's competence. For example, that the chef does not cook such good food, that it often consists of semi-manufactured products, and that the food is not adapted to the children. The teachers also wonder if food and nutrition guidelines really are followed and how the planning actually goes. Also, political decisions, financial frameworks, and procurement can be obstacles. For example, according to political decisions, the amount of organic food should increase. However, it becomes more expensive to buy organic foods, and thus a smaller amount of vegetables end up on the plate. You work all the time in the backwater, reacting too late to political decisions that were made, for example, 3 years ago, according to the catering manager. What happens at the boundaries between teaching and catering is interesting, as it can offer unique learning opportunities. Teachers point out that communication with catering staff is sometimes problematic. They feel that they cannot influence the food that is served and that the catering staff is not receptive to suggestions for improvement. The teachers must report portions and plate waste but receive no feedback. They do not see that as a learning opportunity, and consequently, they do not get involved. In addition, it is often the cleaning staff who report to the catering staff. So there they obviously miss a contact area where you can interact around food. It is also difficult to get information through between the different organizational units with different managers, according to the catering manager. Much depends on the fact that there are good relations at a managerial level. If that is lacking, it is difficult to create a common ground or consensus. There is also lack of joint meetings to sit down and communicate about problems. There are simply too few forums for that. So I think there seems to be a kind of mental barrier between teachers and the catering staff, which may have to do with the fact that teachers are many more and that they usually have higher education. And catering staff sometimes experience that they are neglected and that their work is not so highly valued. Could it be a matter of identity when teachers do not engage to a greater extent in food-related issues? What then are the perceived possibilities to promote healthy eating habits among children in a preschool context among those interviewed? According to the teachers, more knowledge about food and health is needed to be able to talk to children about how, for example, the food affects the body. More knowledge is also needed about different diets because it is the teacher's responsibility to serve food to children with special needs. It is also important that everybody have the same skills to understand why it is important so it does not go wrong. The catering manager believes that teachers need more focused knowledge about food and meals, because if you want to get consensus, you need to talk about the same things. In the work team, the teachers would need to sit down and reflect on common approaches. One would need to make better use of the joint study days to create consensus on the food. Teachers and catering staff need to meet to discuss food and meals together. The participants all believe that you need to make food and meals as a natural part of educational activities. Most of the goals in the curriculum can be linked to food, because it is also, for example, science. You can work thematically with food and meals. The catering manager believes that it is important for the catering staff to take part in the educational activities in order to be able to develop also food and meals. In one preschool close to a garden, the children pick apples and prepare it, and in another school they are involved in preparing food, measuring up rice and calculating consumption, etc. According to the catering manager, it is the leadership skills that are crucial. A leadership that is encouraging and flexible with good relationships in focus. That the manager encourages the employees to take their place in the educational activities, and that the trust is built up between the two communities or organizations. Regarding teachers, it is important to get everyone in the work team to think that food and meals are important. Both teachers, catering staff, and the catering manager emphasize the importance of communication. There needs to be a dialogue and openness and a will to do something good together. That you do not think in terms of territory, but find the solutions. That you start with positive feedback if you want something to change, and that there are also suggestions from teachers. In this work, the susceptibility of the catering staff to be open to suggestions is highlighted as an important piece. Finally, with a supportive meal environment, the teachers believe that it is important to talk positively about the food and really show that you think it is nice to serve and eat it, and that you inspire and are a good role model. It is also important how you support the children in the meal situation itself, and to give the children time. The physical environment is, of course, also central. Peace and quiet and good lighting, etc. So, to conclude, the biggest challenge in promoting healthy eating habits among children, according to this study in preschool, seem to be the lack of a common ground among teachers and catering staff. An important component of the work to put food and meals at the center of activities is to improve and facilitate communication between teachers and catering staff. Communication possibilities could be presented and stressed as learning possibilities, as in the case of reporting food waste, or when catering staff receive feedback from teachers. What was clearly missing was designated meeting spaces, which is a key to develop ideas and approaches together. To carry out this work, competence development for both staff and both staff groups ought to be a priority. Both staff groups need to develop knowledge together in order to be able to use food and meals in preschool as an educational tool to promote healthy eating habits. And thank you for listening. Do you have any